Hello, and welcome back to this episode of the Ask the Color Expert podcast. Today's special guest is a returning guest, the one and only Jesse Skittrall. He and I can talk for hours on end about hair color. I'm still getting great comments and compliments on his episode. He's been a guest in my Hair Color Secrets Insider membership, and he's been amazing with sharing all of his really fun and unique tips on especially corrective color. But he has a lot going on, and he and I talked recently, and I was really fired up. And I said, I'm sorry that we didn't record our conversation because everyone needs to hear the passion between the two of us to really make waves in the industry. And he is someone who's not just talking the talk, he is doing it and making it happen. And I could not be more proud to call him my friend. And I invited him here today to share it with you because we all need to get in there and make some waves with him and create some change. So Jesse, thank you for taking time out of your crazy busy schedule
Wow.
to come back.
my pleasure. Well, thank you, Elaine, first of all, your hair looks fantastic. So tell Johnny he's doing a great job. Whatever he did really good. Because I think you had it done since last time we spoke.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you having me on here, and I'm very passionate about this. So I'm first and foremost going to apologize if I swear. So just hold me accountable. If I get off the rails, I get very passionate.
Let it rip. That's my brand. You're allowed to have those things happen.
I like to tell people this is going to sound really strange when I say it like this. I'm not necessarily here to make friends. I'm here to make a difference. And that's kind of my legacy at the end of the day.
Just got the chills. I love that so much.
And it holds true with a lot of apprenticeship, because a huge part of what we're doing is accountability, and sometimes that's uncomfortable and it doesn't feel good, but that's kind of the responsibility. And I feel I have such a kind of a unique story that I feel a little bit of an obligation to this industry to pay it back and to help those that want to have fulfilling careers in the industry lower those barriers to entry. So one of the things that your viewers may or may not be aware of is apprenticeship, and how apprenticeship is rolling out. And we fight a fight on a regular basis of negative, impactful information where we hear deregulation. They're taking our license away, whoever they are. They're taking our license away. They're doing this, they're doing that. And apprenticeship gets rolled into that, and we get kind of thrown under the bus of, yeah, and here's another way they're taking it away. And I would encourage anybody that's out there maybe questioning that, or has had that, or has bought into that type of belief, if you could just for 2 seconds suspend what you know. I'm not saying get rid of it, suspend what you know, and try to imagine how this can work, and make this work before you make it not work. And because it is, and I'm here to tell you, we're running 300 apprentices currently at the moment, and we're exponentially growing in a very big way. And I like to share that with everybody that's out there and what they can do in helping grow this industry. And one of the things that drives me crazy, and I'm going to be kind of anti-cosmetology school for just a second, is cosmetology schools and barbering schools have become an industry. They are separate from the industry. They are their own industry. They're their own moneymaker, and they're not held accountable by industry per se as much as they are by state agencies or federal agencies. And so they spin off, they can just puke out, excuse the expression, this licensed individual and hope the heck they stick in the industry. And the numbers prove they're not. They're just not. And I don't mean this in a disparaging way towards beauty schools, because there's some incredible ones out there. But when you take a look at the whole picture, unfortunately, it's kind of an 80-20 mix. Only about 20% of them are actually getting it right. 80% are really messing it up and leaving the industry really broken. So where apprenticeship for me became a thing is, I'm a licensed instructor. I've taught cosmetology school. I've taught programs. And one of the things that happened in the school that I was working in, I taught an evening program, and I had a lot of adult interaction. So these are people that work during the day, and they were coming to an evening program, maybe a single mom or whatever the case may be is. And one of the things that drove me nuts was the experience in beauty school is very much driven around wasting time. it's just clocking hours, go in the back room and read a book again. And it just drove me absolutely nuts to watch this woman who's busting her cojones to try to make this work. And she's having to just sit and read. She could be doing this at home with her kids. And it broke my heart, number one. Number two, the big aha for me, and kind of the one that took off my blinders a little bit, was I had the beauty school owner and the director pull me aside one day, and they said, so here's the gig. I don't want you to apply pressure to any of these students until they've hit 51% of their program. And I kind of got that look like, so I'm not to hold them accountable or do anything until they hit 51% of the program. And the aha in that moment was, the reason why is because they get all of the financial aid money
I knew you were
for
going
the
to say
whole
funding.
program
Yep.
at 51%. After that, they could drop, and it doesn't matter to the school. They've got their money and moved along. And unfortunately, I had that experience a couple times with a couple other schools, and it's very disheartening when you do realize at the end of the day, this isn't about growing phenomenal hairdressers. This is a money-making machine, and it's not about proficiency. It's about getting the license. And unfortunately, the license has nothing to do with our industry. It has to do with safety and sanitation in the context of doing hair. It's not even related. They don't really care if the haircut's crooked. So getting the license game than actually being proficient in the industry. So I decided to step out of the school situation, and went and did sales and education for a large hair color company, and then also went on to own my own salon and run my own salon. I'll just do my thing in my corner of the world. And I had this incredible front desk coordinator. Her name was Mikey. And Mikey came to me one day and she says, hey, I'm quitting. Here's my notice. I'm going to cosmetology school. I'm going to get my aesthetics license. I want to do makeup for weddings and lash extensions. And I'm in Washington. We have to do that. And I'm like, wait, Mikey, I think hold on before you make that decision. And I just loved her. She was fantastic. She ran my salon. She was the neck of the damn operation. And we all have that. I mean, we've all had that one person, and you just love them and you hate to see them go. And I wanted to retain her to our organization. And I knew there was this apprenticeship thing that we could do. Didn't really know the ins and outs of it. And so I got a hold of somebody, figured out how to do apprenticeship, got involved in apprenticeship. And I write programs. I've written them. I contribute to Pivot Point on a regular basis, and I've created curriculum and outlines, and I know how to do this. And so we set up Mikey in a treatment room, and we said, "Here, Mikey, here's the book. Go ahead and get started. We'll get to your education. We'll get to it, and we'll get to it, and through the whole program, we'll get to it." And at the very end of this, she passed, got her license, and I did I will get to it the whole time. And at the end of it, when I step back and reflect and I go, oh my God, I'm embarrassed. I'm horribly embarrassed. I've done her wrong. Luckily, she was smart, and she was able to study the materials, and I helped her find somebody to prep her for state exam prep, and that all went really well, and she got licensed, and she's a phenomenal salon owner now. I owe her a debt of gratitude for being my dummy. But it caused me pause to go, if I can't do this and I know what I'm doing, how do I expect the regular average salon owner that's doing the same thing I'm doing to do it? And one of the challenges that happened is, and we've all experienced it, is we get these kids fresh out of beauty school. We hire them because they have a license. And then we have to spend 9 to 18 months helping them figure out they didn't learn anything and help them become proficient or whatever the case may be. And oftentimes it doesn't work. They move along. They decide they want to go be a banker or dental hygiene, or this isn't for them, or whatever the case may be. And it's a painful, painful process. And at some point you ask yourself, if I could just do it myself, if I could just train them myself on our techniques, our hair color brand, how we talk, how we look, et cetera, it would be just much easier. And that's really where Atarashii came to fruition. And that's really what we were all about. I ended up getting involved in apprenticeship with the local apprenticeship program as a instructor, because oftentimes you need to have an instructor in teaching classes, and really found out that they were a mess. And so at the end of the day, I took a look around at other apprenticeship programs and really realized this was a disorganized mess. There's a lot of disorganized mess going out there, some that had figured it out and some that didn't. And I wanted to be able to offer an opportunity to have the administration, to have the curriculum, to have the oversight and the structure in a simple process that a salon owner could do and grow somebody from not knowing anything, being a novice, to a licensed professional that they could retain to their company. Because that's the goal at the end of the day, is they want to retain this to their company at the end of the day. So with that being said, one of the things that I set out to do was partner with Pivot Point, and which is what we've done. We've been able to partner with Pivot Point in creating this incredible structure that we have in the program and create this piece that a salon can basically put into place. They can hire directly from the street under a umbrella of a program, and that's what Atarashii is, under an umbrella of a program that has the state approval, the federal approval, and they can participate and get this person completely the licensure and retain this employee into their salon company more than anything else. And that's kind of where it was built. Atarashii, the name, because everybody always asks, where the hell did you get the name? Atarashii is kanji. I'm from Seattle, Washington. It's kanji. It means new and fresh. It's a different way of doing it. And it was actually my mentor who owned a cosmetology school in downtown Seattle. And the name of her school was Atarashii. She has since passed. The school is long gone. But Atarashii was known to be really cutting edge back in the day. That was the school you wanted to go to. If you wanted to do blue hair and mohawks, and Seattle grunge grew right around where Atarashii was at. They were in the heart of it. So it was kind of the cool thing. So a lot of what I learned about being an incredible educator came out of that experience with her name was Johnny Whitby, may she rest in peace, and her school as well. So we wanted to kind of pay homage to that. So we set up Atarashii. We came over. It was fun. Johnny was she was a big woman with a lot of personality and cast a long shadow, but she worked part-time. She was a SAG hairdresser for the film industry. And we have a little bit of that up here in the Pacific Northwest. And so she often was called on, her specialty was period pieces. So she would do a lot of period wigs and so on and so forth. And, so I have some of her last scripts where she's making hair notes in the script.
Awesome.
We don't want to do pin curls here. It's pretty cool. So, but that's kind of where Atarashii came out of. And I know if she was here with us today, that she would be embracing this methodology as well. So we set up Atarashii with kind of that mindset in mind of how can we do this and leave the salon whole. That was number one. Number two was I have a friend of mine, a colleague that owns a salon here in Seattle. His name's Matthew Fairfax. He runs Justice and Soul. If you haven't checked them out, you need to check out Justice and Soul. Justice and Soul runs a nonprofit group that helps people who have been trafficked get a career in our industry. And as we were developing Atarashii, Matthew approached me and he said, hey, I love what you're doing, but I would love to be able to do this in other salons across the United States, because I have other salons that want to play with Justice and Soul and help out, but how can we do that? So me being the idiot that I am, I'm like, well, let's find out. So got a hold of the Department of Labor National and said, how can we get a national program? And they said, here you go. You can have a national program. And we set forth and did the paperwork. So we've been, that kind of prompted us to be able to offer, to partner with people like Justice and Soul and allow some anonymity to that person who was getting their feet back underneath of them as well, without having to be in that cosmetology school environment, which unfortunately with that demographic doesn't work. So it has a little bit of a magnanimous altruistic piece that's built inside of all of that as well. So by getting the national standards, that's been able to allow us, we actually are approved to do business in all 50 states, every military base in the world, and every territory as well, through the Department of Labor. What's nice about that is when you're a registered apprenticeship through the Department of Labor, you receive a completion certificate from the federal government when you're done. Now, outside of licensure, you will also receive a completion certificate. That completion certificate has reciprocity with every single state. So if your license doesn't have reciprocity, your completion certificate does. So you can take that certificate and it will then allow you to sit for the testing as well. So I'm personally experiencing something like that in Alaska as well. And we have had several apprentices that have completed in one state that have taken their completion certificate to another and been able to test utilizing that.
That's
So
awesome.
it immediately eliminates the issue of reciprocity, because anybody that's been in this business long enough knows that's a huge issue with every single state. So it's kind of like a driver's license. So with that being said, kind of the way that the system works is a lot of times we have to go, and this is where Elaine was like, I'm overwhelmed by this. We have to work with every single state in getting approval. Even though the federal government has approved us, the federal government is not a big fan of stepping on states' rights. So we still have to go through the state process. So while we're recognized and we're approved, we still have to go through the process, whatever that may be in that state. Some states kick open the doors and go, hey, here you go. Arizona was a great example of that. We're here in Washington. We're experiencing something very similar in Colorado. Some states, it's an interdepartmental agency thing. Like I was literally just before this call working with California, which has 4 different agencies that oversight it. So we have to make 4 different agencies happy, and we have to make sure that we're compliant in each one. So we have to play a little bit different in each state. And one of the things we were talking about is, for us to be able to do that, I have to have a salon that's willing to play with me in that state. So for me to call Tennessee and say, hey, Tennessee, I want to do this, they're going to say, who's your employer? Doesn't necessarily mean that I'm actually ever going to do business with them. I just have to have literally a verbal commitment that says, yes, we would be interested in playing with them. It's not an actual physical, monetary, not even a signature commitment. We just need to be able to say this employer would be willing to do this, because the reason for that is they don't want to write a program for a non-existent, non-supported program. So if you don't have any players, why are we spending time and energy? Which I can completely understand that. So that's the big ask here, is to a lot of your listeners, is if you're in a state, please reach out, and you're interested, please reach out to us. If we can't or aren't doing business currently in your state, we will quickly establish how to be able to do business in your state, and we'll put you at the forefront of that if that's something that you're interested in. And one of the reasons I say that is cosmetology schools are slowly withering on the vine. And I'm really going to make some people upset by saying this. I'm really not going to be anybody's friend here, I can tell. Unfortunately, they're closing at a very high rate because hours are being lowered, which means that the Fed financial aid can no longer be supported, so they're being cut off. Some states, Pennsylvania is a really great example, are dictating to a school, if you open a school within 3 to 5 years, you have to be accredited or close your doors. So, which is a very large cost that can run anywhere from $50,000 to $75,000, and a lot of these private institutions don't have that type of money. So it has you have a tendency to close down, and we're seeing it across, all the way across. Now, I'm going to quote a number from the ACEs, which is the cosmetology school organization. I had the opportunity to be at the NIC conference, National Interstate Council of Cosmetology conference, which is all the state boards. The NIC is the ones that write the test for everybody, literally for everybody. And I was at the conference, and there was a gentleman that spoke, Cecil, who is the executive director for ACTS. And one of the things that he said that really caught me was that they're predicting 48% of cosmetology schools will close in the next 18 months. And we're already beginning to see the downside of that. And private schools, not public institutions and nonprofits, but private schools are going to close across the nation. And we're seeing it. We just saw 6 schools in Massachusetts. I know 2 in Iowa, 1 in Nebraska, 2 in Washington State, where I'm at, 1 in Idaho. And it's happening left and right, which is leaving these big gaps. So we no longer have people that are going through instructors training. We don't have access. And where this is really affecting things, and we're seeing it quickly, is rural areas such as Iowa, Nebraska, and places like that, where it's the nearest school is 4 hours away. That's just not a feasible concept. So by working with somebody like us, now what we do as an apprenticeship program, when apprenticeship is accepted, is very oversighted. So there's typically, in apprenticeship, depending upon the state, again, there is Some states, the state board manages apprenticeship. Some states, the labor department manages apprenticeship. Some states, that might be a partnership. Other states, California is a great example, higher education is also involved. And then you also have a learning institution involved. So you have 4 different
Oh my
agencies
God.
involved. And each one has their own rules. And we kind of have to know the rules and laws for each one and play to the highest factor in each one. So depending upon where you're at, but more often than not, there's 2 sets of hours that have to be accomplished. And this is the interesting aha number, because our industry suffers with, how many hours should you go to cosmetology school? And that's kind of made up. I mean, it's literally made up. Somebody pulled some numbers out of their derriere and said, here we go.
Mm-hmm.
So the Department of Labor actually has a rule, and it's been a long-standing rule. Anything that is apprenticeable, licensable, and certifiable has to be a minimum of 2,000 hours of OJT, on the job training or on the job learning, period. So you'll never see a program less than 2,000 hours. So everybody always gets their panties in a wad over the hours are more with apprenticeship than they are in cosmetology school. Yes, because apprenticeship starts with a job and nothing will be less than 2,000 hours. So that's kind of dictated by them. The other thing too, to kind of lose water with that argument, is you're paying for these hours over here in school, where you're working for these hours over here. And you would be, if you weren't in school, you would be working. So you're going to do the hours either way if you weren't. So you might as well do them and get credit for them and get paid at the same time. And that's the other part, is apprenticeships are paid positions. So these are treated just like employees. They are hired and fired just like employees, and they get a paycheck just like employees, but it has this education component that's wrapped around it. And what we've done is, a lot of times you'll see apprenticeship programs where they'll have a brick and mortar school or whatever the case may be. We actually, I hate using the word virtual because we're not really virtual. What we've done is we've taken all the theory, we put together a learning path that the salon can implement. So we partnered with Pivot Point. We integrated with Canvas Salons, Canvas Learning Management Software, which is the largest learning platform in the world. If anybody's gone to high school or college, you'll recognize it. And it allows us to put a learning leader in. So I hire oldie moldy beauty school instructors. I hate calling it that, but they oldie moldy. We all remember that one beauty school instructor that we had in school, that she was usually standing outside having a cigarette. She was a little salty, a smell. Yeah. She's like, put pink in your toner. It'll make a difference, and that's where some of the best advice came from, was while she was having a cigarette out in the back. And she wasn't always everybody's friend, but she made sure you got through school. She may have kicked your ass, but she got you through school. Right. And you may have hated her at the moment, but you came back and went, oh my God, mine was Miss Joy. We had Miss Joy. I hated her at the time. And those stupid finger waves, when we got to the test, I came back and, said that a lot. I hire those people and I turn them into learning leaders. So they meet with our apprentices it starts at 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, and 8 weeks. They meet at regular intervals, especially in the beginning and then towards the end. And they walk them through the whole process of what they're learning. So anything that's theoretical, we're gonna teach it, such as bacteriology, sterilization, sanitation, anatomy, all that stupid, boring stuff. No salon owner wants to teach that stuff. Amen. It's just boring and dry, and you don't remember it. And unfortunately, you don't need to. That's our job. So we'll teach it, we'll measure it, we'll have a test against it, we'll document it, and we'll keep that in perpetuity. We keep that information. That's the other part that people don't realize about apprenticeship or even going to school, the amount of administration that's involved. And then when it gets to an actual skill like haircutting, color, or foiling, you're going to actually teach that as the salon owner. And we're going to give you the tools to be able to teach that. We're going to give you the learning experiences that they have to have. And then better yet, here's what we're going to use to measure that experience and document that experience. And again, put that in perpetuity. Because the biggest challenge with a lot of apprenticeship programs is they don't address the scope of practice that's expected by the state. So we address what's done by the state and make sure that they have the requirements and the OJT hours. And then the second set of hours is called RSI, or related supplemental instruction or related instruction. Those are basically the theory hours. So every assignment that's done in our world has a certain amount of hours that are attached to it that you are assigned. whether it took you 12 hours or whether it took you half an hour, you only get this many hours for the completion of that assignment. And the completion of those hours plus the OJT hours allows us the opportunity for them to sit for the state exam with the state, to be able to, you know, take the exam. At the very end of our training, typically the last 300 hours, what we do is we have a separate company that's exam prep that helps them prep for the state exam, whether it's practical and written, or just written, or if you're Arizona, written and written practical, which always makes me laugh. But
I was
hey,
going to say, I don't even know
is
how
what
you
it
keep
is.
track of what state does what anymore, because every state has
You know,
changed. They're taking away
totally
the
different.
practical. This one has the
Yeah.
practical and not the written. This one has the written and not the practical. And I'm like, it
Yep.
makes my head spin. But what I love about this program, like I could listen to you talk about this, and I already have talked to you about this for another 5 times, because every single ick that is happening in the industry, every single issue, every single roadblock you have solved with this program. So the fact that you even have to fight the fight to get it pushed through is concerning. Yeah. And I've always said since the very beginning, since I was in high school, that I wish that I had just flown over to Europe and done a long-term apprenticeship program, because the whole time I've been licensed, and you know, my Bible was always the American Salon, Modern Salon, from cover to cover as soon as it came. And I would lay on the sofa and I would say to my husband, you know, everyone who's had a lot of success in this industry is from Europe. They were trained from masters in a true apprenticeship. And I'm like, when is the US going to catch the hell up and adapt to that system, instead of, to your point, having these kids sit in a classroom? Like, I had a girl reach out to me for a one-on-one, and we're on Zoom and we're chatting about her experience. And she said, we watched a movie. It was like not even anything to do with hair. We just watched a movie because we only have 20 hours left and they're trying to figure out what to do with us. And I'm like, if I had 20 hours with a beauty school student, what I could teach them in 20 hours to prepare them to be behind the chair. And I'm like, a movie is not on my radar. Like, what the heck is going on? And you kind of explained everything in the beginning with, you know, it's about the setup of the government loans, all that stuff. So there's just so many, it's like drugs, right? We all want drugs to go away, but in the end, the politicians and the higher ups are the ones making the money, and it's never going to go away because there's too many layers. But I just am so impressed by you keeping on fighting the fight, because for me, if anyone reaches out to me and says, I want to go to beauty school, where should I go? I send them right to you. I'm like, there's not a beauty school that I would put my rubber stamp on, because the ones that are doing a good job that I am aware of, and there's one here in Florida that is beautiful and brand new and everything, but it's very branded, and they want them to use that brand's hair color, and it's very cult-like that way. And that's part I don't love either, because I have so many students, by the time they get to me, they're so ingrained in a culture and a color line that they're limiting their future because they can't play in other sandboxes or other, you know, with other brands. And I'm like, I want you to understand color so well that you can cook in anybody's dispensary and anybody's kitchen, because you know the fundamentals of hair color. So I'm just so happy that you're doing this. I hope that people, you know, you're such a detail guy and you go into such detail about all the steps and everything, but I don't think people even are getting from what you're saying. If they're anything like me, ADD, they're thinking exactly what you said. Why would I want to do, you know, 3,000 hours when I can do 1,500? Well, guess what? Those 3,000 hours, you are in a salon. You are putting on retouches. You are blowing dry hair. The real live heart beating pulse, you know, person in the chair that's a real client. It's not, when I was in school, all of our clients came attached to an oxygen line. They were all ready for the dirt nap. You know, it wasn't the best example of education, because they all had the same damn formula, because they had so big cataracts they couldn't even see their color. So the teacher would mix the color for us, hand us the bottle, which I'm still pissed about. I want to go back. If my beauty school wasn't closed, I'd be back there bitching in their face about that, because that was not teaching. That was a very lazy way of teaching. And it's still happening, Jesse. I still have kids that are coming out of school, and I'd say to them, open up your textbook right now. I want you to turn to the section on hair color and read me, And it's the same shit that was there when I was in school in 86. Hasn't changed. And I say, tell me what happens when you have a guest on the floor and you're doing their hair. And they're like, we go over, we talk to them, the teacher comes over, teacher goes back in the dispensary, mixes our color and hands it to us and says, apply this and set the timer. And I'm like, she's not showing you how to mix it, what to mix, why? Nope. And I'm
Right.
like, 2023?
Level, texture, gray. Yeah. None of
My
that.
God, it makes me
It,
crazy.
it's absolutely, and you hit the nail absolutely on the head. A couple of challenges that we come up against, and one is why the reason you said why are we having to push so hard in 2023, right? You know, I always say I deal with these state agencies. I called one the other day, and they're like, "Fax me this," and I'm like, "I'm sorry, I'm in 2023. I haven't faxed for 10 years. I don't know what you're talking about. Come on." What are you talking about? It makes no sense. But one of the challenges that we come across and why we have to push so hard is because, as we said, follow the money. If you go to a lot of these state boards, the state boards either are or the state board councils, the one advisory committees or whatever the case may be, are manned by people that own cosmetology schools who have a vested interest in us not being successful because they see us as a threat. And I know I'm not going to make some fans by
That makes
saying that.
sense. Mhm.
And so they put their foot on our throat and they try to throttle it and create all sorts of barriers to entry. And one of the things I've done is partner up with the Institute of Justice. The Institute of Justice is a nonprofit group that works for legislation for apprenticeship. Number one, they have a whole cosmetology focus. They're also the ones that work to help with braiding and those types of things that don't necessarily belong in cosmetology. And they've been able to help us to approach states and lower the barrier to entry specifically for apprenticeship, because a lot of these are unfair and inequitable, and they are purposely creating barriers to entry. So it's a fight. I'm not going to lie. I'm fighting a fight, and the fight is different in each state, and it is a lot to keep track of. Trust me, I've got file folders built on it. So that's number one. And in why we have to do a lot of the fighting. Number two, you mentioned the content in the book, and this is a pain point for me, and I always like to tell this to people. When you take the state exam typically is written by NIC, National Interstate Council of Cosmetology. If it's not written by NIC, they based it on NIC. So either way. So when the questions that are asked on that test, the content has to appear in the Milady textbook and in the pivot point textbook. Those are the only two typically accepted. There's occasionally click is allowed in there, but the information has to be in all of those textbooks. Now, the challenge comes in if one of those wants to step away from the old guard and the way that it's been done, it now no longer sits on that test. That information is not measured on that test. Does that make sense? So this one has to change their content as well as this one. So it ends up being this organic kind of gatekeeping of information. And my reason I partner with Pivot Point is because Pivot Point Leo was an Austrian apprentice before he actually came here. So he came from apprenticeship. It is still owned by the Passage company, and it is still driven as a hairdresser driven company. And they're very aware of that, as well as they don't just walk, talk, and breathe diversity and equity inclusion. They live it, and they have, and it's not something they have to be woke about. They actually are. On the other side, Milady is Cengage. Cengage is a book publishing company for educational purposes. So that's their game. So it kind of ends up organically keeping the information that's on the test down. So they have to put the old guard information in the dang book by any sense of the word. So you end up teaching it this way and then go, well, we really do this over here. And that's where board certified hair colorist comes into place, because we have a whole nother set of things that we teach and we certify on, and we certify on the skill versus safety and sanitation. So it's a whole nother world.
It's exhausting.
Want to get
it's exhausting.
It is. It's exhausting to be me. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, the flip side is here's the deal. Artificial intelligence is getting so crazy smart and is like taking off at the speed of light. And I said to my daughter, who now runs the salon, I'm like, thank God we are in an industry that we can't be completely replaced by these robots of artificial intelligence yet. I'm sure there's
Right.
something in the works that's going to change that, forward thinking, but it's at this point, you need a human being to cut your hair, you need a human being to color your hair and all those things. And I think the trades, my prediction as I didn't go to college, I don't have big degrees, but I'm very street smart and I have an amazing gut that I trust on the regular. And my thing going forward is that college applications are going to go down, trades are going to go through the roof, because college is not necessary. I can get any morsel of information on any degree right now.
Thank you.
Using ChatGPT, like just type in any question. If I'm an engineer,
anything,
if I am, an attorney, a doctor, any of those things, I can get my answer within 12 seconds. But I cannot get somebody to formulate to cover this gray hair at my regrowth and only color this and not overlap this and make sure that, it's placed in certain places. So thank God for that. And honestly, I'm 55 years old. When I get together with girlfriends from high school, I love what I do more than anyone I know on this planet besides you. I mean, the passion and the Bryn's like, Mom, you're insane. She's like, you literally work 27 hours a day because you love it. She's like, I'm so jealous of that because it doesn't feel like work. Like you and I right now are working, but it doesn't feel like work. We're having this awesome conversation. So when there's passion and purpose and it comes together with a great cause, like what you're doing, I reached out, for those of you listening, I reached out to Jessie and I'm like, I am fired up. I just came back from this meeting where they're talking about the future of cosmetology. How can I help you? How can we get more people to understand what you're doing? And, once he got into what he just got into here, I get this like glazed over, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed look. And Jessie's like, are you okay? Because there's so much to it. But the beauty of you listening is you don't have to do any of that because Jesse's doing it. All he needs you to do as the person listening is put your hand up and say, salon owner, for me, my hand's up in Florida and my hand's up in PA, because it kills me to not be able to offer this. In Florida, this is how crazy all the rules are. In Florida, I can have an apprentice under me because I'm a licensed hairdresser for 35 plus years. I do not have a teacher's license, nor do I need one in Florida. If I go back to PA to my salon, I can't have an apprentice because I have to go back to beauty school for 6 months, pay 10 grand, sit in some classroom and just observe what's not happening there, pay all that money and take all that time away from my clientele that I make my living. And I'm like, I can't walk away from the salon for 6 months to get this thing. And I'm thinking about, I'm like, okay, $10,000 investment, 6 months of my life. I have kids, I have a business, I have a clientele. What I get, the grand prize at the end, is I get to teach someone how to be a hairdresser and save them 20 grand. But what's in it for me? I just gave up 6 months of my life. So to your point about like the things that you have to have and licensing and all that, it's so uneven and crooked and messed up that it's like, I can do one thing in one state and not in the other. And, they talked about at that meeting, nurses have what's called the compact role where you can be a traveling nurse. I can get on a plane right now and go to Hawaii and be a nurse, and I can be a nurse here in Florida or in PA or in Arkansas, but I can't cut hair in those places. I would think a nurse is going to do a lot more damage if they make a mistake than someone with a pair of scissors doing a haircut. So like, it's just, it makes no sense. It's super. You can see me getting fired up. My face gets red, my blood pressure. I'm ready to have a stroke.
I'm over here doing the same thing.
I'm so pissed about this. And it's like, I literally stay up at night staring at the ceiling saying, what is missing? What can be done? You are doing everything possible that you can do, but there's even more that has to be done. And I don't know what that is. And I'm just going to keep asking and keep knocking on doors and asking until someone can come out of a training program that is their beginning phase, that is a proper beginning phase, and they can then be successful within a year behind the chair, not 5. That gap, you and I talked about the statistics. It's
huge.
What is it, 2% now that make it something 2 to 5%?
So 83% of people, and so I'll share the industry and then I'll share where we're at. 83% of people that start cosmetology school drop out.
So don't even finish school.
Out of that percentage, don't even finish. So when we all remember this, we all started with these large classes and they just went,
Yeah.
really quickly, and people just dropped like flies. Out of those that actually finish, in 3 to 5 years, 82% of them are out of the industry because they can't make it in the industry because they're not taught proficiency. I'm sorry. Let's just be really honest here. You have to, we are a, sorry, you got me wrapped. We are a trade. We are not academic by any sense of the word. And the landscape of learning has changed. We do not need somebody to stand in front of a blackboard and go, this is bacteria.
Yes.
The landscape of learning now is discovery, helping people discover. And there is enough information, and the gatekeeping has changed as technology has changed. We have access to this information in a much better way. We do not need to be standing in front of a classroom with a pointer saying bacteria. So here's some interesting numbers. We have an 86% completion rate in our program already as it stands. We have a 97%, I'm reading my numbers because I keep them right here, 97% first time pass rate with the exam.
Wow.
That's a huge deal. So when you take the state exam, that's a huge deal. 92% retention rate to the salon. So, and we're talking 7-year numbers here. This is over the 7 years that we've been able to measure this. Our apprentices, when they get out, rolling numbers are working at 75% productivity, meaning they are booked 75% of the time. So they are working and look, act, feel, and walk like any other service provider that's in your salon company.
Amazing.
They're trained in your skill. And you said it, they're branded, the Redkins, the Avedas, the Paul Mitchells, those types of things. We don't want to brand to a brand. We want to brand to the salon. I want to brand you to the salon. What is the salon's culture? What is the salon's philosophy? Why did they pick this brand? You know, some salons believe in Brazilian blowout. Others believe in keratin complex. Let's make space for that. How do we make space for that type of stuff? And to have an apprentice working at 75% productivity is a huge deal because that's a 3-year number for those that have been licensed and out
100%.
3 years later. I expect that. And so really we're talking about a 4-year curve if you include school with that. This is, I mean, we literally took a 4-year experience and went 2,000 hours, which is 1 year, which is 1
When
year's
I was
worth
in
of
beauty
time.
school, I was probably about halfway through, and I had these random part-time jobs just to pay my car insurance and gas to get to and from school. And I was like, okay, I should really start to work in a salon. But because, again, broken, beauty school hours were like 9 to 4:30.
Right.
It was Tuesday through Saturday, so same hours as a salon. And by the time I got done school, most of the salons were closing at like 6 or 7. So I could only get in, I would race to the salon job and I could only get like 2 hours in a day. And then not only was it not enough time to learn anything or to really get immersed in the culture, but it also wasn't enough money. It was very minimum wage, like probably $6,
minimum
not
wage.
even. It was probably like $4 an hour back then, but very minimum wage, 2 hours a day. You know, I was doing Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday I couldn't work at all because they were closed by the time school was done. So that's 8 hours times minimum wage. I was making after taxes like $30. It didn't even pay for my gas.
Right.
Where this is so genius because these people aren't having 25 grand in beauty school, you know, loans, and they're getting the on-the-job experience while they're getting paid to learn, and they're not paying to learn. Like, to me, it's just like, how can anyone say no to this? It's like such an amazing opportunity. It's such a no-brainer. Such a no-brainer.
The one that always gets me is, and I always have this in cosmetology school, is they would get out of school, they would get licensed, and then they go, I don't want to work evenings or weekends.
Yeah,
because cosmetology schools during the day, Tuesday through Saturday, or, you know, in Utah, it's Monday through Friday. And then it's like, okay, none of that is based in reality. Your clients are evenings. They're going to be weekends. You have to be there when the client is there. It's such a painful reality. Now, the second part of where our program comes into place, and this is a big advantage to having a national program like this, is we also have people in-house that advocate for you for financial assistance. Now, we don't tap into Pell's and the current financial assistance, because here's some scary numbers. 9 of the top 15 defaulted schools, largest defaulted schools, top 15 in the United States, are cosmetology schools and barber schools. These are schools that have defaulted on their student debt. Ouch, that's kind of scary, first and foremost. Number two is we don't want to be a stress on that system. So what we've done is, by getting approved through the Department of Labor in each state and labor board, that allows us the opportunity to access what's called WIOA funds. And WIOA funds are Workforce Innovation Act. And it's a lot of paperwork, and there's some needs assessments that have to go on, so on and so forth. But we can usually get wage reimbursement for the salon. We can get tax credits. We can get kits that are paid for by the government based off of the need. We could get wraparound services, like you mentioned, gas, childcare, groceries, all sorts of stuff. We help you access those services as a program. We help the apprentice access those services and the salon access those services to ease the burden of training on the salon and make it easier for the apprentice to, thrive, not just survive. We want to thrive.
You are absolutely amazing, and you have thought of absolutely everything. So for the people that are as fired up as us listening to this right now, they're like, wait, why do I not know about this? 7 years? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
How can they find out more about it? How can they get more of you, get more information, and help us to fight the fight?
Oh, so a couple of different ways. First and foremost, visit the website Atarashii, Atarashii.org. You can Google it when you hit Atarashii.
Yeah, you had to throw that extra I in there, because every time I Google it, I'm finding all these other things. I'm like, oh, there's a second one.
Yeah, that's it. No, the second I separates us. So on the internet, we're the only one that shows up with Atarashii. Reach out to us there if you want to participate. One of the biggest things that we need is, we're putting together a list. So if it's not available in your state and it's something you're interested in, what I need is a list of salons that are willing to use their voice. And it's about getting people together through the Institute of Justice. When we do approach that state about legislative changes, we need to be able to say, and industry supports this, and here's who they are. Because the biggest voices go to the associations that speak out against these things, and we know who they are. I don't want to say their names out loud, but it's not brain surgery to figure out who they would be, that would speak out against this type of thing. So we need to hear your voice. So if you can reach out to us, and you can reach out specifically to me at Jesse, Jessee. See what I did there with the I-E-E? You get it? Okay. Jessee at Atarashii.org. You can email me directly. If you want to get more information about it, you can certainly sign up to be a training agent online. If you have somebody that wants to be an apprentice, go onto our website, apply to be an apprentice. There's a big map. You can click on it and pick your occupation, and you apply right there into the pool of people for apprenticeship. So.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't ever stop. Don't ever get discouraged, because you are right on with what needs to happen. And I think
I appreciate it.
Hopefully my little podcast will reach some ears.
I'm gonna
some passion.
I'm gonna put this out against the whole world. Let's just put it that way. So thank you, Elaine.
Thank you, Jesse. And thank you everybody for listening. And we will see you all on the next one.